This is a joint meeting with my counterpart in the East Turlock Subbasin GSA, and that's Sarah Wolf. And I'm doom scrolling right through the list of attendees right now, and I don't see 7 members from the West Turlock TAC at this point. So I see 4, but Christy Orlando, Mike Pitcock, and Turlock Irrigation District reps. Don't see anybody else. So Sarah,
Mike, this is Miguel, City of Modesto.
Oh, you're like James Bond, man. You're always undercover. Okay, so that's 5. Even so,
Chair Cook, we also have Member Velasquez from the City of Houston on.
That is correct.
Yeah, I already counted. Jaime, good to see you. That's 5 agencies. What we'll do is I'll pass over to Sarah. We'll keep moving. Our action items aren't till for a while yet, and I can always move those further down the agenda if that's okay with everybody. In the meantime, I hand over to you, Sarah, see if you have a quorum and you can call your group to order.
Thanks, Michael. I believe I have a quorum with myself, Dennis Yatsuya, Christy from Stanislaus, and I believe Matt Beeman is on.
Yep,
So,
I'm here.
great, thanks, Matt. So we do have a quorum of the East Turlock GSA, and at 2:03, we'll call it to order.
Wonderful. So the first item on the agenda is public participation. This is the time set aside for members of the public to directly address the technical advisory committees on any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the technical advisory committees. You can make comments now or wait till a particular item comes up on the agenda. We're fine either way. So with that, do we have any public comment? Okay, hearing none and seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, which is the approval of the minutes. As I don't have a quorum, Sarah, do you want to go ahead and do the minutes for East Turlock, or is there, yeah, you want to go ahead and do the minutes for East Turlock?
Yeah, no problem. So for East Turlock, we need to approve the minutes from our joint TAC meeting that occurred on July 28th. They were in the packet. And so if I could get a motion from someone on East Turlock TAC board and a second.
This is Dennis. I'll move to approve.
Thanks, Dennis.
This is Christy. I can second that.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, with that, I'll do a quick roll call vote. Dennis,
Yes.
Christy,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
and Sarah, yes. With that, it's approved by East Turlock, the minutes of July 28th.
All right, thank you, Sarah. We'll have to skip item number 5. I only see 6 agencies right now. There's the resolution of the West Turlock Act to continue to meet remotely. Jennifer, correct me if I'm wrong, we still only have 6 members right now, right?
Thank you. I see that. Oh, there we
Oh,
go.
Karen
She just
just
spoke
joined.
up. Vice Chair
Hi.
Morgan has joined us.
Sorry, I was a little late.
There you go, Karen. Thank you so much. So with that, it's 2:05. We have a quorum of the West Turlock Subbasin GSA. So I'm going to go back to item 4A, which is the adoption of the minutes from the July 28th regular joint meeting. Those meeting minutes were sent out earlier in the week. Do we have any corrections or a motion for approval? I motion to
All
approve.
motion. Oh, sorry. I can second.
So who made the motion?
Orlando.
Thank you, Orlando.
Karen will second.
Second by City of Series. Those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, those minutes stand approved. And item number 5, this is resolution of the West Turlock Subbasin Technical Advisory Committee recognizing the state of emergency proclaimed by the governor, which remains in effect, and reauthorizing remote teleconference meetings. The West Turlock Subbasin GSAs. This will be good for another 30 days from September 4th through October 3rd. Any discussion on that? Does someone want to make a motion?
All motion, Michael.
Thank you, Karen. So a motion by series. Do you have a second?
Second, Waterford.
Thank you, Mike. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Michael, if you're okay, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote on this one for us since it's a
The
resolution.
correct. My bad. Go ahead, Jennifer.
No, you're fine. You're fine. No worries at all. Member Alvarez,
Yes.
Member Gutierrez, Member Gutierrez, Member McKinnon,
Yes.
Member Montalbano,
Yes.
Member Pitcock,
Yes.
Member Velasquez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Morgan,
Yes.
Chair Cook,
Yes.
and I think that I'm going to try Member Gutierrez one more time. We're taking a roll call vote for item 5, which is the resolution for the remote teleconferencing. Are you able to vote on this item?
Yes, sorry, my computer logged off and logged back on.
No worries. I appreciate you joining us again. So if you could please do a yes or a no on this item.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you. We have a member total of 7 that has approved this item.
Perfect. So that motion stand approved. So we will meet via teleconference for the next 30 days or so. That brings us on to item number 6, which is the draft programmatic environmental impact report for the public review meeting. So this is a presentation regarding the programmatic environmental impact report for the GSP or the groundwater sustainability plan. And Meredith and Kelly from ESA are here to join us and talk us through it. So over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. My name is Kelly Sterl, and I'm an environmental planner and hydrologist with Environmental Science Associates. I'm joined today by my colleague Meredith Parkin, and among others, we've been working this past year on the draft Program Environmental Impact Report for the Turlock Subbasin Groundwater Sustainability Plan. I'd like to welcome you all to the public workshop portion of today's meeting. Next slide, please. We first wanted to acknowledge funding for this project that's been provided in full or in part from the California Drought, Water Parks, Climate, Coastal Protection, and Outdoor Access for All Act of 2018, and through an agreement with the State Department of Water Resources. Next slide, please. So the agenda for the workshop today, we wanted to describe the purpose of the public workshop, then provide some background on SGMA, the Groundwater Sustainability Plan, as well as CEQA, including how the GSP was incorporated into this document. We'll then describe the programmatic environmental impact report, including how we define the proposed project and the study area, and then summarize results from the environmental and alternatives analyses. And then we will summarize next steps of the CEQA process, including the schedule and the process for public comment. Next slide, please. So the purpose of today's public workshop is to receive public and agency input on the draft Program Environmental Impact Report, or the PEIR. The West Turlock Subbasin GSA served as the lead agency, and the East Turlock Subbasin GSA served as the responsible agency, and both will consider comments received in preparing the final PEIR. Input can be provided by speaking at this public workshop, by email, or by mail. Next slide, please. So to give some background to the GSP, in 2014, Governor Brown signed into law the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act. GSAs, or groundwater sustainability agencies, are tasked with developing and implementing locally developed GSPs for all groundwater basins designated by the Department of Water Resources as medium or high priority. These documents are planning documents that provide a roadmap showing how groundwater basins will, through the implementation of projects and management actions, will reach long-term sustainability. The Turlock Subbasin was designated as a high priority groundwater basin by the Department of Water Resources with implications under SGMA. Both the West Turlock Subbasin and East Turlock Subbasin GSAs jointly prepared a GSP, and it was adopted on January 6, 2022. Next slide, please. Here's just to orient the Turlock Subbasin map showing the Turlock Subbasin, what we defined our study area. It's approximately 544 square miles and is bounded on the north by the Tuolumne River, the south by the Merced River, and on the west by the San Joaquin River. It is part of the larger San Joaquin Valley groundwater basin. Next slide, please. CEQA, or the California Environmental Quality Act, review is not required for the development or adoption of a GSP. However, it is required for the implementation of projects and management actions that are called for by the Turlock Subbasin GSP. A program level CEQA document was determined appropriate to streamline these later activities. The PEIR was prepared jointly by the West Turlock Subbasin GSA and East Turlock Subbasin GSA. The types of projects and management actions implemented under the GSP represent the CEQA proposed project. Next slide, please. CEQA requires that an EIR contain a statement of objectives sought by the proposed project. The objectives of the GSP are to achieve the sustainability goal for the Turlock Subbasin by 2042 and avoid undesirable results over the remainder of the 50-year planning horizon. The sustainability goal is to ensure a reliable and sustainable groundwater supply that supports population growth, sustains the agricultural economy, and provides for beneficial uses, especially during drought. It is achieved through the implementation of the PMAs that propose both structural and non-structural actions to enhance regional water supply and avoid undesirable results. Next slide, please. So the PEIR defines projects consistent with the GSP as being physically constructed structural features designed to recharge the groundwater system through several approaches. We categorize in the PEIR these projects according to their primary recharge mechanism as defined in the GSP as being either direct recharge, in lieu recharge, or a combination of both. Next slide, please. Similarly, management actions are also defined consistent with the GSP as non-structural programs to incentivize voluntary actions. These management actions would be implemented in conjunction with projects as needed to mitigate overdraft. The actions are referred to in the PEIR as belonging to one of three categories, also consistent with the GSP: demand reduction strategies, pumping management framework, and domestic well mitigation. Next slide, please. The Turlock Subbasin GSP is a planning level document of concepts. It describes a number of PMAs, but does not outline specific construction activities or detail the specific operations and maintenance activities. Therefore, the PEIR summarizes the typical construction and O&M activities common to the development of groundwater recharge opportunities. This includes the direct and indirect impact mechanisms, general construction activities, example features resulting from construction, and example operations and maintenance activities. Next slide, please. The environmental analysis included an analysis of all environmental impacts on all resources in the study area, including biological resources, cultural and tribal resources, hydrology and water quality, and noise. Being a program level document, the analyses are generally qualitative, using existing information and inferences from similar projects. The analyses are also generally conservative, assuming that all projects and management actions would be implemented. Next slide, please. So the draft PEIR identifies no impact or less than significant impacts on the following resource areas. Next slide, please. The draft PEIR identified less than significant impacts on the following resource areas after the incorporation of mitigation measures. This included biological resources, hydrology, water quality, noise, transportation, wildfire. Next slide, please. And the draft PEIR also identifies potentially significant and unavoidable impacts to the following resource areas. This preliminary finding does not mean that these impacts will occur, but instead flags these resource areas for further analysis when the site-specific environmental analyses are conducted. Next slide, please. Mitigation measures that are recommended to reduce impacts to the less than significant level include minimizing degradation of visual quality and avoid effects of project lighting, minimizing disturbances of sensitive species, natural communities, and wetlands and waters, implementing water quality protection measures and site-specific modeling to prevent adverse groundwater changes, and requiring the preparation of a traffic management plan. Again, these are just some examples of the mitigation measures included in the PEIR. Implementation of the mitigation measures would be the responsibility of the PMA proponents. Next slide, please. So CEQA also requires that an EIR describe and evaluate a reasonable range of alternatives to a project. Potential alternatives were screened based on their ability to feasibly attain most of the basic Turlock Subbasin GSP objectives, feasibility within the limits of Sigma, and their ability to reduce or eliminate any significant environmental impacts of implementation of the PMAs. Next slide. The following alternative was considered but rejected in the draft PEIR. This was the alternative interbasin transfer of groundwater from an adjacent groundwater basin. This alternative would essentially seek to achieve the sustainability goal and avoid undesirable results at the expense of another groundwater basin. It was therefore rejected for further consideration in the PEIR. Next slide, please. The alternatives that were identified for analysis in the draft PEIR included the no project alternative, an alternative that specifies more narrowly the types of PMAs implemented under the Turlock Subbasin GSP, an alternative that eliminates certain aspects of PMAs, for example, eliminating PMAs that propose the construction of new features, and an alternative that excludes entire categories of PMAs. So for example, excluding all direct and in lieu recharge projects and only implementing management actions. Next slide. So the analysis concluded that the no project alternative would result in similar impacts to the implementation of all types of PMAs because other projects would be occurring, including other agricultural, development, or water resource projects that are not described in the GSP. Alternatives 1, 2, and 3 would result in similar impacts to implementation of all types under the Turlock Subbasin GSP because they include the implementation of some projects and management actions. Impacts, however, could be of lesser magnitude. Next slide, please. Alternative 3 excludes entire types of PMAs, which would result in the least construction activity compared to the other alternatives. So in CEQA, alternative 3 would be the environmental superior alternative. However, it was determined that alternative 3 would not fully achieve most of the plan objectives, and that implementation of all types of PMAs are essential to achieve the sustainability goal for the subbasin and avoid undesirable results. Next slide. So next steps for the CEQA process. The Turlock Subbasin GSAs will consider all comments from agencies and members of the public in preparing the final PEIR. The final PEIR will include responses to comments on the draft PEIR, and the final PEIR will be prepared in early 2023. Next slide. The PEIR will be available for proponents of future PMAs to use for CEQA compliance when they seek to approve actions that are consistent with the PMAs called for in the Turlock Subbasin GSP. The PMA proponents would evaluate whether this PEIR describes the impacts adequately, or if necessary, the impacts would be evaluated in project level CEQA documents, such as an initial study or an EIR. Next slide. Just to recap the CEQA schedule, the NOP was released January 7th. The draft EIR was published July 27th, and the final EIR is scheduled to be certified in early 2023. Next slide. The public comment period on the draft PEIR is July 27th through September 12th. The draft PEIR is available at the Turlock Groundwater website and can also be viewed at these 3 library locations. Next slide. And here's just some information on how to submit comments either by mail or electronically via email. And with that, we will take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Kelly, do you have any questions for Kelly and the ESA team? The PEIR? Not hearing anybody, and I don't see any hands raised. As Kelly mentioned, the public comment period is open and runs through September 12th, and there are various ways to comment. And obviously Kelly and her team will help us deal with those comments, hopefully.
Hey, Michael?
Yes, well, go ahead.
Yeah, that's what I didn't know how to raise my hand. I was interested in hearing from Kelly a little bit more about alternative 3. And what was the thought behind excluding direct recharge and in-lieu recharge projects?
So as mentioned, and thank you for your question. So we were stepping through different alternatives to the proposed project, which we defined as implementing all types of projects and management actions. So the thought behind these alternatives was essentially kind of coming up with different versions of implementation. And so, we thought, okay, based on the categorization of the different PMAs in the GSP, if we excluded all projects and just proceeded with management actions, what would that look like?
And I can add to that part of CEQA requires is looking at an alternative that has less environmental impact than the proposed project. And this is one of those that when you exclude an entire category, that could potentially provide you with less environmental impact. However, it doesn't meet the objectives. And that's the reason it didn't rise to the level of the proposed project.
Yeah, I understand. And it just seems so significant, the idea of being able to implement projects, direct recharge, and in particular, in alignment with the GRAT software. So I was just trying to understand why that wasn't given a little more emphasis. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Do you have any other questions? Anybody? Okay, well, wonderful. Thank you very much for your presentation, Kelly, and for being on, Meredith. We really appreciate working with you guys, and look forward to wrapping these things up, and then obviously getting the implementation one of these days. Oh, Peter, you have your hand up. My apologies. Peter Dreckmeyer. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I just kind of snuck it up there at the end, but I appreciate you calling on me. This is Peter Dreckmeyer. I'm the policy director for the Tuolumne River Trust, and I have not had a chance to look at the draft PEIR, so my apologies if this is covered in there. But I do have a question about how will it be determined when it's appropriate, if we do go with direct groundwater recharge, when it would be appropriate to divert additional water from the Tuolumne. And I can imagine the policy might be, well, as long as we're meeting in-stream flow requirements, if there's extra water, we would take that. And we would have concerns if that is based on the current base flows, which were established in 1995, so 27 years ago, and we feel have been insufficient to protect biological resources in the lower Tuolumne. If the Bay Delta plan is implemented, then there are some assurances of 40% flow, and that certainly will contribute to recovery of the lower Tuolumne. But there are, different situations. We've got dry years, we've got wet years, we've got average years. We have situations where we have a series of dry years and then maybe an average year or a wet year. And I'm just curious if the PEIR does look into some kind of policy of when it would be appropriate to do groundwater recharge versus when does the lower Tuolumne River need more water?
Thank you for your question, Peter. Speaking to whether the PEIR gets into policy changes, I do not recall that we get into that. I know, however, the cumulative analysis does consider the Bay Delta plan and what implementation of the Bay Delta plan would mean for GSP projects and management actions.
Thank you.
Michael, did you have something? Because I can offer just a little bit more.
No, go ahead, Meredith.
So this document is assuming that the GSP, as articulated in the latest draft has been implemented. And so some of the policy decisions are going to have to come obviously after this or in future negotiations with GSP. This is really the environmental impact of implementing those. So policy was not necessarily within this document. If there are further discretionary actions from a project proponent that would require CEQA, they'd be able to use this. But from a policy perspective, it was more of taking what the GSP had said and evaluating it accordingly.
Thank you.
And Meredith and Kelly, I'm assuming like most EIRs, it's been a while since I've read it, so I do apologize. But usually there's a section that talks about, permits required or future requirements for certain types of projects. And there's potential for certain types of recharge projects could require approval from the state water board, that type of thing. So I'm assuming all those things about a Delta plan fish flows would be covered as part of their analysis and permitting.
Correct. And there's also a section on future CEQA documents and what would be required. Even the recent executive order 722 that deals with flood mar. We have that in chapters. So chapters 1 and 2 would be a really good place to look. That chapter, those chapters also have the permits required that Michael was speaking about.
Okay, really good. Thanks for the questions, Peter. Anybody else? I don't see anyone. Okay, that was good. Thank you very much. And appreciate Meredith and Kelly, your work there. Okay, and I'm just checking. Orlando had to leave. Had a problem at a well site. Do we have 7 members again, Jennifer? Or are we back down to 6?
Unfortunately, it looks like we only have 6 members unless someone has joined us just recently that I have not accounted for. But it looks like we still have City of Modesto, Stanislaus County, Turlock Irrigation District, Waterford for Hickman, City of Houston, City of Ceres. And am I missing anyone else? With that, Chair Cook, it looks like we only have 6 members present.
Okay. With that, Debbie, do you think it makes sense for you at least maybe present items 8 and 9, even if we're not actually going to able to vote on them today, and then we can maybe follow up in the next meeting, or you just want to skip over those and come back some other time?
I could do it either way. I think East Turlock has already taken action on these 2 items, so it's really West Turlock specific to get the authorizations, and we could do that at the next meeting, which would be in early September. We'll have a special meeting then. I'll defer to you, and I think Sarah was going to report on where East Turlock was with them.
Yeah, I can report that East Turlock voted to move forward on both of those today at their GSA board meeting.
That's helpful. So when we do meet in September, if the West Turlock TAC chooses to take action, then we could proceed at that time.
And so just for the West Turlock folks, big picture overview, we have some unexpended Prop 68 funds, which we're proposing to use for preparing the final environmental impact report for the PEIR we just heard about. And then some unexpended dollars we could use for on-call services for Todd to deal with issues as they arise as work on GSP implementation. So minor issues, but we did want the West Turlock TAC to vote on that. So we can't today. So we'll follow up in September.
And there'll be more of those specific project related items coming to the tax and the GSAs as we move forward, because we're kind of transitioning from having a larger project of the GSP to transitioning to smaller implementation projects. And so that's kind of what we've been doing as we've moved forward with doing the budget for the tax and the GSAs, as well as beginning some contracting to facilitate this type of a project-based approach. So,
yeah,
thank you.
And a I remember our last West Turlock board meeting, we kind of developed a contracting method. And the commitment was to run contracts by the TAC first before they were signed. So this is part of doing that kind of transparency process with the board. Anyway, we'll get to them next time. So that's items 8 and 9. We'll skip over those. And that brings us to item number 10, signal related updates. I know Julianne's going to speak, but maybe Herb, you want to go first on your communications and outreach?
Michael, I was just going to say that everything I was going to mention would have been is tied up in the last few slides of the presentation given by ESA on the PEIR and the process. And so other than that, I have nothing additional to report. And so with that, I'll just hand it over to Julianne, who wants to give a update on some East Turlock Subbasin GSA activities.
Sure. So Julianne, over to you. Welcome to the group.
Great, thank you guys so much for having me this afternoon. The East Turlock Subbasin GSA is going to be holding a workshop on October 18th at 9:30 at the Cortez Hall, which is where we hold our regular board meetings. And the purpose of the workshop is to discuss different ways that the GSA is exploring to measure groundwater extraction. So we're going to be looking at the viability of ET metering, and we're also going to be discussing possible fees that may be attached to that in the future. So those are, of course, our two very sometimes controversial issues, and they're very impactful to the landowners. So of course, no decisions have been made yet. We want to have this workshop as a starting off point for discussion. And we're going to be engaging in an outreach plan to invite those landowners to our meeting. Currently, we're going to be presenting at the Stanislaus County WAC next week. We also have postcard mailers, and Herb has graciously offered to advertise the workshop in the regular email blasts that the West Turlock sends out. And we're also going to be advertising it on the website. So that is coming up, and those are our outreach efforts. And I look forward to keeping the joint TAC updated.
Thank you, Julianne. Much appreciated. So that's the end of communications and outreach. GSP implementation. Debbie, what have you got for us?
Hi. I don't have a lot. Most of it was incorporated into the items that were delayed. We've really been working towards doing the contracting to facilitate developing the projects for the GSP, and we are going to be moving into once we have the final master services agreement set up, we'll be contracting for preparing a grant application for this next round of Sigma implementation grants. And so each of the GSAs will be pulling together projects that could be included. We won't know what the grant project solicitation package allows for until it gets issued. But we want to kind of start compiling a list of possible projects, and then we can whittle it down once we have more of an understanding about what can be funded. And so that's underway. The two items that were before the West TAC today will move forward as well. And I believe in September, we'll be bringing to the joint tax the ability to approve a contract for a small amount to update the OPTI project system that's used for the integrated regional water management planning process. We identified that list and that software package as a tool to be used for the GSAs as well as we're implementing the GSP. So it'll kind of provide an ongoing project list that could be updated over time. And so we'll be wanting to update that so that the projects that get funded or applied for under the grant are kind of included in our GSP list. So that'll be important as well. And you'll hear more about that next month. And lastly, we are moving forward with siting monitoring wells along all three rivers, as well as over on the western side of the subbasin to do preliminary design work and site the wells for a dedicated monitoring network that is also being funded through the Prop 68 funding as well. So that's all I have for you right now. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
It's great. Debbie, any questions for Debbie? And I apologize to everybody. I skipped over item number 7, which was a budget update. I was too busy looking for a quorum for items 8 and 9 that I missed number 7. And to make it even better, the very reliable and dependable Michael Clipper is off today. He's not even in the office. So I have no update for the basin plan, for the basin account or the West Turlock account. I don't know, Sarah, do you have anything for the East Turlock?
Yeah, I can give a quick East Turlock update, so we have something to talk about. We had our, as I mentioned, our GSA board meeting this morning, so this is the report from that meeting. As of July 31st, we had a balance of $314,075.80. We had a few Prop 218 deposits waiting for more of those to come in. We approved paying the bills for the amount of $16,432.51, leaving us with a balance at the end of August. We should be at $298,718.23. So that would be the East Turlock's current budget status. And that's all I have for East Turlock.
Wonderful, Sarah. Thank you very much. So with that budget update's done. So I think we've kind of gone full circle now and got back to the end again. Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, hearing nothing. The next regular meeting is scheduled for September 22nd. But Debbie, you say we may have a special meeting before then?
Yes, I think so. In the second Thursday in September. So if my calendar is right, I think it's the 8th.
Okay. I'll make sure we beat the bushes to make sure West Turlock folks are all here so we can take the appropriate actions.
And Debbie, just to be clear, that would be a West Turlock TAC meeting solely. Okay.
Thanks for the clarification. Thank you, Sarah. Okay. I asked for a motion for adjournment, but we're basically adjourned, at least on the West Turlock. Sarah, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Let me see if I can get a motion for adjournment for East Turlock.
This is Matt. I'll move.
Thank you, Matt. A second.
Dennis, I'll second.
Thank you, Dennis. I'll do a quick roll call. Matt?
Yep.
Dennis?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
And Sarah, yes. We are adjourned for East Turlock.
All right. Thanks, everybody.